Hey everyone, please, have a seat. I'm Emily. I've been working at St. Mary's Medical Center for almost 20 years now, and most of that time I've spent right here, on the floor we affectionately call the farewell wing. It's the palliative care unit, you know, where we don't cure anymore. We care. We give comfort. We hold hands. We listen. And look, I've seen it all. People who die in peace. People who die fighting. People who have regrets at the very last minute. But the story I'm about to tell you today, this one turned me inside out. It involves a secret so well kept that if it weren't for the music, it would have died with the man. It all started with Mr. Walter. He came to us without much hope left. Advanced pancreatic cancer. A man in his mid-70s. Thin, sunken eyes, but with a dignity that didn't match the abandonment. Because that's what Mr. Walter was. Alone. No visitors, no family calling, no flowers on the nightstand. When we asked about family, he just shook his head, tired, and said, "Don't have any, sweetheart. Haven't had anyone for a long time now." And we respected that. Here, we learned that silence is sometimes the most complete answer. Mr. Walter was a difficult patient in the sense that he was closed off. He didn't complain about pain, which was already a bad sign, because dying people usually have a lot to complain about. He just lay there, staring at the ceiling tiles, as if watching an old movie that only he could see. The days went by. We did our work, medication on time, baths, fresh clothes, a smile, a word of comfort. Dr. Patterson, our palliative care specialist, had already given his prognosis. "Emily, it's a matter of days. Keep him comfortable." I was on duty on a cold Thursday night, one of those nights that seems to swallow up the city of Boston. The light at the nurse's station was dim. I was checking prescriptions when Mr. Walter rang his call bell. That wasn't common. He always tried not to be a bother. I walked in slowly, the room lit only by that dim glow we leave on so as not to startle anyone. "Mr. Walter? Are you feeling something? Pain?" He turned his head slowly, his eyes fixed on me. His breathing was already short, labored. "Not pain, Emily." His voice was a hoarse whisper, almost inaudible. It's the end, I think." I moved closer, held his hand, which was cold and covered with age spots. It was protocol, but it was also my way of saying, "I'm here, Mr. Walter. You're not alone. Do you want me to call Dr. Patterson? Or a chaplain? Someone from spiritual care?" He squeezed my hand a little. "No, I want something else." I tilted my head, waiting. What could a man on the edge of death, with no apparent faith, no family, want? A cold beer? A forbidden cigarette? I wanted you to sing for me. I'm a nurse, folks. I'm good at giving injections, monitoring vital signs, doing wound care. But singing? I sing in the shower, off-key. "Oh, Mr. Walter, you don't want to hear my voice. I'm terrible." He gave a sad little smile, a movement that deepened the wrinkles around his eyes. "It doesn't need to be pretty. It needs to be that one, that lullaby." "Which lullaby, Mr. Walter? Rockabye Baby?" He closed his eyes and shook his head again. "No, one that I sang a long time ago. Nobody remembers it anymore." And then he started to hum the melody. It was something old, slow, with a melancholic harmony. It wasn't American. It wasn't popular. It sounded like classical music, almost operatic, but simplified to rock a baby to sleep. And then he said the lyrics, or at least the first line he could remember, forcing out each syllable. "Sleep, my angel, for the star has come to find you." He stopped, exhausted. "I don't remember the rest, Emily. Just that part. I need the rest." That request hit me in a strange way. It wasn't about the music. It was about memory. It was as if he were trying to hold on to a thread of life through that forgotten song. Mr. Walter, I've never heard that song in my life. It's beautiful, but I don't know where it's from. Look for it, he pleaded, his voice almost disappearing. Please, look for it. It's the only thing I'm taking from here. I promised, even knowing it was an almost impossible mission. Google wasn't going to help me find a lullaby that seemed to have come out of a European trunk from the last century. I left his room with a tight chest. The man was dying, and the only thing he wanted was a lullaby. This wasn't normal. There was a story there. A big story. I spent the rest of the night mulling it over. Who was Walter? He didn't look like a construction worker or a retired accountant. He had a bearing, even in his deathbed. The next morning, before leaving, I decided to break a rule. I went to the deceased storage, where we keep the belongings of patients who arrive with nothing of value. Mr. Walter had a small brown bag. Inside, an old pair of pajamas, a pair of slippers, and at the bottom, a worn manila envelope. I opened the envelope. I thought I'd find a will or a work ID, but no. What I found were two things. First, a photograph. A black and white photo, slightly yellowed, of a young beautiful woman with dark hair and a smile that seemed to light up the picture. She was holding a baby in her arms. The baby must have been about 6 months old. Second, a newspaper clipping. Old, on thin paper, dated 30 years ago. The headline was in bold, large letters. Maestro Leopold abandons everything and disappears after triumphant debut at Carnegie Hall. The headline was shocking, but what made my spine freeze was the photo accompanying the article. It was the photo of a young man, elegant, in a tuxedo with a conductor's baton in his hand. The eyes were the same, the forehead, the jawline. Mr. Walter wasn't just Walter. He was Maestro Leopold. Folks, if you follow the world of classical music, you know who Leopold was. He was a genius. One of the greatest conductors America ever produced. Famous for his complex, melancholic compositions that touched the soul. He was at his peak, on the cover of every magazine, when suddenly he vanished, evaporated. Nobody ever knew what happened to him. And he was there. In the farewell wing, under the name Walter Smith, a John Doe. I sat down in the storage room chair, my heart racing. 30 years. What would make a man with that talent, that fame, disappear, change his name, and end his life alone in a hospital bed? And the music? That lullaby. It was the key. I went back to the nurse's station, pretending everything was normal. I had to be discreet. If the media found out that Maestro Leopold was dying at St. Mary's, it would become a circus, and Mr. Walter deserved peace. But I also had a mission. Find the music. I spent the entire next day, during my breaks, researching. I couldn't ask anyone at the hospital. This had to be my secret, my project. I started typing keywords. Maestro Leopold, lost compositions, lullaby. Nothing. I called a cousin of mine who's a musician, kind of a nerd about these things. I described the melody as best I could, humming softly into the phone. Emily, this is strange. It sounds like an old aria, but adapted. It has a touch of chamber music, but very simplified. Are you sure it's a lullaby? I'm sure, Jessica. He said he sang it for someone. Wait. Leopold. I remember a rumor. When he disappeared, they said he had an unfinished work. A ninna nanna. That's Italian for lullaby. It was never published. They say he wrote it for his baby. The baby. The photo in the bag. The beautiful woman. The baby in her arms. I went back to the newspaper article. I scrolled down to the end of the text, which talked about the impact of his disappearance. Maestro Leopold disappeared shortly before the birth of his only daughter, the result of his brief marriage to pianist Rebecca Anderson. The pianist's family, devastated, states that the child, named Catherine, will never know her father. Catherine. At that moment, I wasn't just looking for a song anymore. I was looking for the daughter of a man who was dying. A man who, after 30 years of silence, was asking for the only thing that connected him to the life he abandoned. I found the pianist's name, Rebecca Anderson, and started searching for her. It didn't take long. She was a public figure. But what I needed was Catherine. What happened to Catherine? I typed Catherine Anderson, daughter of Leopold. The internet, folks, is a curious beast. It hides and reveals everything at the same time. I found a professional profile, a CV, full title, Dr. Catherine Anderson, MD, PhD. I read the rest of the page, and the air left my lungs. I had to hold on to the desk so I wouldn't fall. Where did Dr. Catherine Anderson work? She was the chief of cardiothoracic surgery at St. Mary's Medical Center. Dr. Catherine, the busiest, most respected, and most feared woman in the hospital. The one who walked the corridors with an aura of ice and competence, who didn't give smiles and who demanded perfection from all of us. She was the daughter that Mr. Walter, Maestro Leopold, had abandoned 30 years ago, and she was working just 2 floors away from the room where her father was dying, asking for a lullaby that was, in truth, a confession of his greatest regret. I looked at the clock. Dr. Catherine's shift started in half an hour. I had a secret that could destroy a patient's reputation, shake the emotional foundation of a renowned doctor, and perhaps give a final moment of peace to a man in his last breaths. I took the newspaper clipping, the photo of the mother and baby, and tucked them in my pocket. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew it had to be fast. Mr. Walter didn't have time. I needed to find the music, and I needed to decide. Did I tell Dr. Catherine the truth, risking my career and the peace of the entire hospital? Or did I let Maestro Leopold die alone, taking his secret and his unfinished song to the grave? The nurse in me said, "Don't get involved, Emily. Maintain ethics." But the woman in me, the one who holds the hands of the dying and hears their last wishes, screamed, "You have to do something. They're so close." I needed a plan, and I needed that song. I stood up. My head was spinning. I had to go to Mr. Walter's room, see how he was doing, and try, again, to memorize the melody. I got to the station, and Dr. Catherine was already coming in, passing me like a hurricane, her white coat impeccable. I swallowed hard. "Dr. Catherine, good morning," I said, trying to seem normal. She barely looked at me, already with a chart in her hand. "Good morning, Emily. Is the patient in 308 ready for the OR?" "Yes, Dr. Catherine." She moved on. I watched her walk away. She was so strong, so controlled. How would she react to discovering that her father, the monster who abandoned her, was just meters away? I took a deep breath and headed to the farewell wing. Mr. Walter was even weaker. Time was running out. I entered the room. He was sleeping, but restless. "Mr. Walter," I called softly, touching his shoulder. He opened his eyes. "Did you find it?" he asked, straight to the point. "Not yet, sweetheart. But I'm close. Sing it for me again, just the melody." He made a terrible effort and sang, or rather murmured, the melody again. I took out my cell phone and discreetly recorded it. I left the room and sent the audio to my cousin the musician, urgently. "Jessica, help me. It's a man's life." I went back to the nurse's station, trying to think. Where could I find the sheet music for the Nina Nana? If his cousin knew about the rumor, maybe there was something in the New York Philharmonic archives, where Maestro Leopold had worked. I was about to call Carnegie Hall, preparing to invent some elaborate excuse, when my cell phone rang. It was Jessica. "Emily, you're not going to believe this." Her voice was rushed. "That melody, it's the basis of one of Leopold's most famous compositions, the Symphony of Absence. But he never used it like this. I found a manuscript of his, digitized, at the university library. A draft. He wrote the complete song with the lyrics. It's exactly what you sent me. Send it to me, Jessica. Now." In seconds, I had the Lullaby lyrics on my cell phone screen. It wasn't long. It had 4 verses. I didn't read it. I put away my phone and ran back to the farewell wing. Mr. Walter was coughing. It seemed like at any moment he would stop breathing. "Mr. Walter, I found it. I found your song." He opened his eyes, and for the first time I saw a tear roll down. Not from pain, but from relief. I started to sing, softly, so only he could hear. My voice wasn't beautiful, but it was full of intention. "Sleep, my angel, for the star has come to find you, to take you to the sea of dreams where time doesn't know how to live. Close your eyes, my little one, for silence is your song. Father will keep your sleep here, deep in his heart." With each verse, his breathing became calmer. When I got to the last verse, the one about the future and hope, he held my hand with strength I didn't think he had left. I finished the song. Silence returned to the room. He didn't open his eyes. I thought he had passed. "Emily," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. "Catherine, is she okay?" I couldn't lie. He deserved to know. "She's wonderful, Mr. Walter. She's a brilliant doctor. She's Dr. Catherine, the chief surgeon of the hospital." His silence was long, deep. "I knew it," he said. "I knew she was strong. You need to tell her something. One last thing." At that moment, I heard hurried footsteps in the corridor. They weren't a nurse's footsteps. They were the footsteps of authority. The door opened suddenly, and the light from the corridor flooded the room. Standing there, with a rigid posture and the look of someone who accepts no deviations, was Dr. Catherine. She looked at me and then looked at Mr. Walter. "Nurse Emily, what's happening here? I didn't authorize any visits for this patient. And why were you singing?" I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the secret crushing me. I knew I was screwed, but I had to finish Mr. Walter's mission. "Dr. Catherine, this patient is dying, and he has something for you." She frowned, confused and irritated. "I don't know this patient. Leave the room, Emily. Now." I didn't leave. I had the photo of her childhood in my pocket, and the lyrics to the song her father composed on my phone. I couldn't let him die before saying goodbye. Mr. Walter made a final effort, looking directly at the daughter he hadn't seen in 30 years, without her knowing who he was. "Catherine," he called with a thread of voice. Dr. Catherine froze. Her name. The way the sound came out of that dying man's mouth made her stop. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice low and dangerous. I made the final decision. I was going to risk everything. "Dr. Catherine," I said, looking into her eyes. "This man is Walter Smith to the hospital, but he's Leopold to the world, your father. And he asked me to sing the song he wrote for you, the Nina Nana. He asked me to tell you that he never forgot you." Dr. Catherine's face went white. She was no longer the chief surgeon. She was just a 40-year-old woman, facing the ghost of her past. She looked at me, at her dying father, and the only thing she could say was, "Music? What secret is this, Emily?" I knew her shock was just the beginning. I had to orchestrate the ending, and it had to be fast. Mr. Walter's heart was failing. The game had begun, and I was center stage. I had to bring the maestro and the doctor together, and time was running out. I felt the floor disappear beneath my feet. Folks. The silence that settled in that room, with Dr. Catherine frozen in the doorway, was heavier than any ICU monitor. It was the silence of 30 years of absence, now broken by my hoarse voice. Dr. Catherine didn't yell, which was worse. She was the type of person who destroys you with calmness. "Emily," she repeated, her voice dangerously low. "Repeat what you just said, and don't come at me with fairy tales. This man is Walter Smith. He's a terminal patient with no family identification. You're confused." I took a deep breath. I had the proof in my pocket, but my main weapon was the truth. "Dr. Catherine, I'm not confused at all. I'm connecting the dots. I found this." I took out the manila envelope from my pocket, the newspaper clipping and the photo. I held out the photo first, the black and white image of Rebecca, the pianist, holding a chubby baby in her arms. Catherine took the photo. The hands that made millimeter-precise incisions trembled a little. She looked at the image, and I saw the recognition in her eyes. Not recognition of her father, but of her mother. That smile was unmistakable. "This is my mother, Rebecca," she whispered, confused. "And that's me, as a baby. Where did you get this?" Before I could answer, she looked at the newspaper clipping. The headline, "Maestro, Leopold, abandons everything." She read the article, her eyes running over the lines. Her mother's name, her name, Catherine, and the photo of the young man, elegant, with the baton. She raised her head and looked at the man in the bed, Mr. Walter. Thin, aged, almost a skeleton, but still, the bone structure, the aquiline nose. Her white coat no longer looked so impeccable. The ice cracked. "No," she said, the word coming out like a denial of years of pain. "It can't be him. He died to me 30 years ago." "He's been dying of regret for 30 years, doctor," I said quietly. "He came here to die alone, without bothering anyone. But he couldn't take it. He needed one thing, the music." I moved closer. Mr. Walter, Maestro Leopold, had his eyes closed, but his hand still held mine, a weak grip, but present. "This lullaby, Dr. Catherine, isn't just a song. It's what he couldn't say when he left. He asked me to find it because it was the only way he could apologize." I picked up my phone and opened the text file that Jessica, my cousin, had sent. The lyrics to Nina Nana. He only remembered the first line, "Sleep, my angel, for the star has come to find you." But the ending is for you. I started to read the last verse, not singing but reciting, so Dr. Catherine could hear every word, understand every note of this late love composition. "And if one day the distance is greater than the longing I carry, know, my love, that the music that rocks you is the only path I know. I give you back to the world, but my heart stays here, by your side. Forever, my angel. Forever." When I finished, the silence was absolute. Dr. Catherine, the chief surgeon who never cried, was crying. Not sobbing cries, but silent, heavy tears falling on her white coat. She let the newspaper clipping fall to the floor. She didn't care anymore about the hospital, about ethics, about reputation. She was just Catherine, the abandoned daughter, who finally found the answer to why. She knelt beside the bed, bending that impeccable posture. She held her father's free hand, the one that wasn't holding mine. "Dad," she said, her voice breaking. "Dad, why now? Why did you wait so long?" Mr. Walter opened his eyes one more time. They were eyes of clarity, of someone who had already crossed the threshold, but was waiting for one final moment. He didn't have the strength to speak much. He looked at Catherine, and the shine in his eyes was pure adoration. "Catherine, I didn't deserve it," he whispered. "I didn't deserve to see you grow up. I wasn't I wasn't good enough for your mother. I was a coward. But I loved you. Always. You. Do you remember the melody? Catherine wiped her face with the back of her hand, the physical pain of instant grief. I don't remember, Dad. I was too young. But then, her memory, awakened by my voice, by her father's touch, by the song's lyrics, performed a miracle. She started to sing, not the complete song, but the melody. That operatic arpeggio, simplified for the cradle, that I had heard on that cold night. She sang with a choked voice, but the pitch was perfect. After all, she was the daughter of a maestro and a pianist. Music was in her blood. She sang the first lines, the ones I had sung. And Mr. Walter, Maestro Leopold, smiled. A smile of relief, of complete peace. He had been remembered by the right person, at the right time, with the right music. "Forgive me," he whispered. "I forgive you, Dad," Catherine answered, holding him against her chest. And there, in the arms of the daughter he had abandoned and who had become a force of nature, Mr. Walter closed his eyes. The grip on my hand loosened. His breathing stopped. He was gone. In peace. I stood there, holding his cold hand, while Catherine held him. I had witnessed not just a death, but a rebirth. A musical reckoning worth 30 years of silence. You know, before I go on, I need to pause for a moment. Because this story, this incredibly beautiful and painful story, reminded me why I do what I do, why I show up here every single day, even when it's hard, even when it breaks my heart. If you're watching this, and you felt that ache in your chest, that connection to something bigger than ourselves, I want you to know, you're not alone in feeling that way. These stories, these moments of grace and forgiveness, they're why I keep coming back. And they're why I share them with you. If this is touching your heart, if you want to be part of this community where we witness life's most profound moments together, I'd love for you to subscribe. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss when I share the next story from these halls. And please, leave a comment below. Tell me about a moment when you witnessed forgiveness, or when you needed it yourself. Your words create a space where others find comfort. I read every single comment, and so do many others who are looking for hope. Now, let me tell you, the drama didn't end there. Not even close. Folks, you think the drama ended there? Oh no. The hospital is a place of rules, and I had broken every single one of them. Mr. Walter's body was removed, and I was immediately called to administration. I was screwed, wasn't I? Violation of patient privacy, breach of protocol, introduction of external information into palliative care. I expected termination for cause. I sat in the office of Mr. Harrison, the administrative director, who was red with anger. "Nurse Emily? What the hell happened in patient Walter Smith's room? Dr. Catherine Anderson is visibly shaken. She's out of commission. And the chart is a mess with notes about a Maestro Leopold. What do you have to say in your defense?" I looked at him, tired but firm. "I did my job, Mr. Harrison. My job is to ensure patient comfort until the end. And Mr. Walter's comfort was his daughter's forgiveness. I gave him what you can't give, peace." Harrison was about to start yelling, pointing at my contract, when the door opened. It was Dr. Catherine. Her eyes were swollen, but her posture was back, more rigid than ever. She was wearing civilian clothes, ready to leave. "Mr. Harrison," her voice was icy, cutting through the director like a scalpel. "Nurse Emily will not be reprimanded. On the contrary." Harrison was speechless. "Dr. Catherine, but the protocol breach—" "There was no protocol breach, Mr. Harrison," she interrupted, looking directly at me. "Nurse Emily provided excellent palliative care, going beyond medication to treat the patient's soul. I am the next of kin to patient Walter Smith, now identified as Leopold Anderson, and I authorize all of Nurse Emily's procedures." She paused, and her expression softened minimally when she looked at me. "Emily," she said, and the use of my first name, without the formal nurse, made my heart warm. "Thank you. You gave me the only thing I didn't know I was looking for in life. You gave me my father back for 10 minutes, and that was worth more than 30 years of hatred." She turned to Harrison. "If Nurse Emily is punished for this, I leave this hospital, and you know what that would mean for cardiothoracic surgery." Harrison swallowed hard. Dr. Catherine was irreplaceable. "No, Dr. Catherine. Of course not. Nurse Emily. Excellent work. You may return to your station, Emily." I left the administration office without a scratch, but with my heart almost exploding. Dr. Catherine, the Ice Queen, had defended me. The following days were strange. The hospital tried to cover up the fact that Maestro Leopold had died there as a John Doe. But Dr. Catherine didn't keep it secret. She organized a discreet but dignified funeral for her father. And she invited me. I went. She was there, in black, with the same composure as always, but with a different light in her eyes, one that came from peace, not anger. After the ceremony, she came to me. "Emily, I wanted to ask you something," she said, holding a small bundle of papers. "The Lullaby lyrics, the Nina Nana. I got the complete sheet music from your cousin. It's beautiful. It's the masterpiece he never published." "And what are you going to do with it, Doctor?" She smiled, a real smile that lit up her face. "I'm a surgeon, not a musician, but I can't let this music die. This music is his story, my story. I'm going to publish it, Emily, with a preface. I'm going to tell the truth. That the great Maestro Leopold, before he died, composed his greatest lament for the daughter he abandoned." I was moved. The music, which was the key to the secret, would become the bridge to his legacy. "And there's one more thing," she continued, looking at the paper. "He called it Nina Nana per Catherine, Lullaby for Catherine." 3 months later, I received an invitation in the mail. It was elegant, on cream-colored cardstock with gold lettering. "You are cordially invited to the world premiere of Nina Nana per Catherine by Maestro Leopold Anderson, Carnegie Hall, in memory of a father's love and a daughter's forgiveness." I went, of course. I wore the nicest dress I owned and sat in the audience, surrounded by people in tuxedos and evening gowns. The hall was packed. Critics, musicians, journalists. Everyone wanted to hear the lost composition of the legendary maestro who had vanished. Dr. Catherine was there, in the front row, wearing a simple black dress. She looked nervous, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen her at the hospital. The lights dimmed. The conductor, a young woman with fiery red hair, stepped onto the stage. She raised her baton. The first notes filled the hall. That melody, the one Mr. Walter had hummed to me in his hospital bed. But now it was full, orchestrated, with strings and woodwinds weaving around each other like a mother's arms around a child. It was heartbreaking. It was beautiful. It was the sound of regret, transformed into love. When the soprano began to sing the lyrics, those words I had read to Mr. Walter and Dr. Catherine, I wasn't the only one crying. I could hear sniffles all around me. The power of the music, the story behind it, the knowledge that this was a deathbed reconciliation put to notes and bars. It was overwhelming. "Sleep, my angel, for the star has come to find you." The soprano's voice soared, and I closed my eyes, remembering Mr. Walter's weak whisper, his trembling hand in mine, the way his face had lit up when his daughter had sung for him. "And if one day the distance is greater than the longing I carry, know, my love, that the music that rocks you is the only path I know." When the final note faded, there was silence. That special kind of silence that comes after something sacred. Then the audience erupted. Standing ovation. People were openly weeping. Dr. Catherine stood and walked onto the stage. The conductor handed her the microphone. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice steady but emotional. "This piece was written by my father, Maestro Leopold Anderson, for me when I was just a baby. He never had the courage to give it to me while he lived. But through the compassion of a remarkable nurse named Emily, who's here with us tonight, he was able to share it with me at the very end of his life." She looked directly at me in the audience. "Emily, would you please stand?" My heart stopped. Every head in Carnegie Hall turned to look at me. I stood, shaking. "This woman," Dr. Catherine continued, "saw beyond a dying patient to the human soul beneath. She broke rules. She took risks. She gave me back my father, and she gave my father peace. This music exists because of her." The applause that followed was for me, but it didn't feel like mine. It felt like it belonged to Mr. Walter, to that cold Thursday night, to the power of forgiveness and music, and the mysterious ways we're sometimes given a chance to heal old wounds. After the performance, Dr. Catherine found me in the lobby. "I want you to have this," she said, handing me a small velvet box. Inside was a gold locket. When I opened it, I saw 2 tiny photos. One of Mr. Walter as Maestro Leopold in his prime, and one of baby Catherine. "He would have wanted you to have it," she said. "You were there when he needed someone most. You were the bridge between us." I hugged her then, right there in the Carnegie Hall lobby, the Ice Queen chief surgeon and the palliative care nurse, holding each other and crying. "He loved you so much," I told her. "That's all that song was about. Just love." "I know," she whispered. "I finally know." I went back to the farewell wing, folks. I'm still here, caring, holding hands. The story of Mr. Walter, the maestro, taught me so much. I learned that palliative care is about the life that remains, not about the death that's coming. It's about giving people the chance to fix things, to ask for forgiveness, to be remembered by the right name. Mr. Walter didn't take anything material from here. But he took what he needed most, the certainty that his greatest act of love, that forgotten song, finally found its audience. And Dr. Catherine? She continues to be the chief surgeon, relentless and brilliant. But now sometimes, I see her in the corridors, and she doesn't pass me like a hurricane anymore. She stops and gives me a nod. A silent acknowledgement. Once she told me, "You, Emily, aren't just a nurse. You're a conductor of goodbyes." And that's it, folks. Sometimes to heal the soul, we don't need scalpels or injections. We just need a song, and the courage to sing the truth. You know what I think about sometimes? I think about all the Mr. Walters out there. All the people carrying secrets, carrying regrets, carrying songs that nobody else can hear. They're in our hospitals, our nursing homes, our own homes. They're our parents, our grandparents, the elderly neighbor who never has visitors. What if we listened more? What if we looked beyond the charts and the diagnoses and the protocols, and really saw the person in that bed? Mr. Walter taught me that it's never too late, even with hours left to live, even after 30 years of silence, even when you think you've destroyed every bridge behind you. It's never too late to try. Dr. Catherine taught me that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. She didn't forget what her father did. She didn't pretend those 30 years didn't happen. But she chose, in that moment, to let love be bigger than hurt. And that's the bravest thing I've ever witnessed. I keep a copy of the Nina Nana per Catherine sheet music in my locker at work. Sometimes during my breaks, I take it out and look at the notes, even though I can't read music very well. I think about Mr. Walter's trembling hands, about Dr. Catherine's tears, about the way music became the language when words had failed for 3 decades. The piece has been performed all over the world now. It's been recorded by major orchestras. Music students study it. Critics call it a masterpiece of redemptive composition. But for me, it will always be that moment in a dim hospital room when a dying man whispered a melody and asked me to find it. Last week I had a patient, Mrs. Rodriguez, 82, end-stage heart failure. She asked me if I knew any Spanish lullabies. I didn't, but I told her about Mr. Walter. I told her about the power of music at the end of life. "What song would you want someone to sing for you?" I asked her. She thought for a long moment, then started humming something her mother used to sing to her in Mexico, 75 years ago. I recorded it on my phone. I'm going to find it for her, just like I found Mr. Walter's song, because that's what we do here in the farewell wing. We don't just manage symptoms. We help people finish their stories. We help them say goodbye in the way that matters most to them. Sometimes that's with family around them. Sometimes it's with a chaplain's prayer. Sometimes it's with a photograph of someone they loved. And sometimes it's with a song that's been waiting 30 years to be sung. I want to tell you something, and I need you to really hear this. If you have someone in your life that you've lost touch with, someone you've hurt, or who's hurt you, someone you think about in the middle of the night when you can't sleep, don't wait. Don't wait 30 years. Don't wait until you're in a hospital bed with days left to live. Pick up the phone, write the letter, send the email, say the words, sing the song. Because here's what I've learned from years in palliative care. At the end, none of the other stuff matters. Not the career achievements, not the money in the bank, not the grudges you held on to like they were precious. What matters is love. What matters is connection. What matters is being able to look back and know that you tried to heal the wounds instead of letting them fester. Mr. Walter waited until the last possible moment, and by some miracle, he got his chance. But not everyone does. Not everyone has a nurse who'll dig through their belongings and Google newspaper archives and track down long-lost daughters. You have time right now. You have the chance right now. Don't waste it. I've been doing this job for 20 years, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, nobody, and I mean nobody, has ever said on their deathbed, "I wish I'd held that grudge longer." Nobody has ever said, "I'm glad I never apologized." Nobody has ever said, "I'm so happy I let pride keep me from the people I loved." What they say is, "I wish I'd said I love you more. I wish I'd forgiven them. I wish I'd had the courage to reach out." Don't be one of those people. Be like Mr. Walter, who found his courage at the 11th hour. Or better yet, be braver than Mr. Walter. Find your courage now. If this story touched your heart in any way, know that you're not alone. We all carry our own battles, our fears, our doubts. But that's exactly why stories like this need to be told and heard. If you know someone who needs to hear this message of hope, share this video. Sometimes one story can be the light someone needs to keep going. And if you have your own story to tell, leave it here in the comments. This space is ours, it's safe, and every word matters. I read every comment, and I know many of you also read and find strength in each other's experiences. There's another story waiting for you on the screen right now, another moment from these halls that will move your heart. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of those you love, and remember, life is always worth it. A warm hug, and until next time.